Hey guys, welcome. Is your earnest money deposit refundable? Well, we're going to dive in today and explain those ideas right now. There are several factors in your earnest money deposit, contractual, contingencies, things like that. Tip number one, how much do I put down as an earnest money deposit? Well, as a rule of thumb, there may be 1% to 2% of the sales price. So in a competitive market, such as a seller's market that we're in right now, if you're going to put in an aggressive offer, you may put more down. You may put 10% down. Just remember that if there's a breach in contract, you're going to possibly lose your deposit. So let's talk about those ideas next. The second tip is who holds on to the deposit. The earnest money or good faith deposit is held by a third-party company, such as title escrow, or it could even be an attorney. You do not want to give it to your realtor. You can wire the transaction. You could do a cashier's check. Those are the two most common. So if you get a cashier's check, make sure it's written out to the escrow or title company or the attorney, and then you want to personally drop it off and make sure you get a receipt for that deposit. If you're writing a personal check, which I don't advise, it's going to take time for the check to clear, and you know that you have 3 days per the contract to get your deposit into escrow and to get a receipt. So make sure you stay within the contractual limitations and get the deposit in within 3 days. That's 3 business days. Tip number 3, there are actually 3 scenarios in this tip and what happens to your deposit or earnest money or good faith. There are 3 scenarios that can happen. Number 1, the sale can go through as a normal transaction and your earnest money deposit will be towards your down payment. If it's cash, then that'll be deducted from the overall amount. Number 2, you could actually fall out of escrow and the earnest money deposit would be held in escrow for that situation. If you were to breach your contract, then the seller has obligations to probably keep that deposit. So the third scenario is if you were to back out because of issues that were discovered, or maybe it was an appraisal or loan issue, and you stayed within your contractual limitations, you didn't breach the contract, then yes, you'll get your deposit back. But the little secret is the seller has to agree and sign off on it before you get your actual money back. So make sure that you follow all the contractual obligations and you stay within the guidelines. And you know, the contract is a timely decision, so you have to keep track of the days in escrow after acceptance, so you don't want to go beyond that. So tip number 4, the contract. The contract has provisions in the contract that both parties have to legally be bound to the contract. There are contingencies in the contract that you want to stay very, very close to. Like I was just saying, in the timeline of the contract, your contingencies could have a 5-day, a 10-day, 15-day. It could be defaulted to 17 days. And now in California, our contract with loans and contingencies on the financing part might be 21 days. So you want to stay within those contract limits, and you may get a notice to perform from the sellers saying, hey, we haven't got your contingencies removed yet, so you want to make sure that you stay within your limitations of the contract so you don't lose your deposit. Tip number 5 is the contingencies. There are many different types of contingencies, but the most two common are, number 1, your inspection contingencies, and number 2, your loan contingencies, and that might be wrapped up in part of that with the appraisal. So there's actually 3. So the inspection, the loan, the appraisal contingencies are all the big ones. So you want to make sure that you stay within your contractual limitations again to those contingencies, and watch your timeline very, very close. In our next video, we're going to talk about the 3 common mistakes that a seller makes before listing their home for sale. We're going to talk about that. So remember, your good faith deposit, you can actually lose it if you breach your contract. So get with your realtor, watch your timelines, and do not breach your contract, because if you have a $5,000, a $10,000 deposit, good faith deposit in escrow, hey, you could lose that and it will go back to the seller, especially if you breach the contract. Avoid 3 common mistakes when listing your next home. Those are the ideas we're going to share in our next video. So make sure you subscribe and like to our channel, and we'll see you on the next one.